It begins with a signature folder that should have been routine, just another royal formality, filed and forgotten. But one line makes William's blood run cold, a property transfer framed as a private gift, tied to Camilla's family. The timing feels wrong. The wording feels too careful. And when William realizes the papers are minutes away from becoming irreversible, he doesn't negotiate, he stops it. Because in royal life, property isn't just wealth, it's power, access, and legacy. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. In this fictional account, the folder isn't delivered with drama. It arrives the way palace decisions often arrive, quietly, professionally, wrapped in routine, so nobody asks why it exists in the first place. A signature folder, a formal stack, a neat ribbon of administrative certainty. The kind of paperwork that's supposed to glide through the system without friction. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Because when something is designed to feel routine, it's designed to avoid scrutiny. William notices it at the wrong moment for the people who hoped he wouldn't. He sees a near-finalized property gift scheduled for signature. Not weeks away, not pending review scheduled. Ready. Almost finished. The language calls it private generosity, a personal act of kindness. But William can read palace language the way some people read threats. Private in royal life rarely means harmless. It often means protected. Shielded from questions until it's too late to reverse. The transfer is framed as private, but the implications are institutional. That's what makes his stomach tighten. Because property tied to the crown doesn't just sit there like land. It creates proximity. It creates access. It creates influence that can't be photographed, but can absolutely be felt. William feels the future reign being boxed in, not by a speech or a scandal, but by a deed, a quiet rearrangement of power that would outlive any argument made afterward. A signature doesn't just approve a gift, it approves a structure. The palace tries to soothe him with familiar words, normal generosity. Routine support. Nothing to see here. But the paperwork is unusually strict, and strictness is never accidental in a document like this. Strict clauses mean someone anticipated resistance, someone anticipated questions. Someone built a shield into the ink. William catches the careful phrasing that seems designed to close doors before they're even opened. He recognizes how the language keeps options narrow, how it makes the transfer feel inevitable, and he realizes this wasn't drafted for simplicity. It was drafted for permanence. That's where the tension shifts from confusion to alarm, because William isn't only reading what the document says, he's reading what it expects. It expects no interruption. It expects no debate. It expects the signature to happen before anyone can fully process the consequences. The timing feels wrong, because wrong timing is often deliberate timing, designed to slip through during distraction, designed to move while everyone is looking elsewhere. Then comes the foreshadow that turns his suspicion into something sharper. The file references an internal risk assessment note. That phrase shouldn't belong near a harmless gift. Risk assessment suggests the palace understood the optics, the backlash, the vulnerability, and proceeded anyway. It suggests someone calculated the downside and decided the upside mattered more. William can feel the machinery behind the folder, the unseen hands that prepared it, pushed it forward, and wrapped it in routine so it wouldn't look like a choice. And then, the cliffhanger hits like a cold light turning on. William realizes someone ensured the king wouldn't see a key page. Not a minor oversight. A missing sheet at the exact place where the document's true shape would be revealed. He understands instantly what that means. This wasn't simply Charles choosing generosity. This was Charles being guided. Managed. Presented with a version of the truth that was safe for him to sign. The king was meant to approve without fully knowing what he was approving. William doesn't shout. He doesn't plead. He does the one thing that changes the entire day. He stops it. He blocks the signature. Not as a son throwing a tantrum, but as an heir protecting the institution from a quiet capture. And the moment he does, every polite assumption collapses. Because now the palace must explain what it hoped would never need explaining. And the moment William blocks the signature, the palace stops being a household and becomes a battlefield. The public sees estates as tradition and comfort. Inside the palace, estates are leverage: who gets access, who gets proximity, who gets permanence. A gift can become a gateway. A deed can become a loyalist's fortress. William understands that, and that's why he treats this transfer like a security threat disguised as kindness. Because when property moves, influence moves with it, and the monarchy can't afford influence that answers to anyone but the crown. In this fictional account, the moment William blocks the signature, the argument stops being sentimental and becomes structural. People outside the palace would ask, why not give a gift? But William isn't looking at a gift. He's looking at proximity politics, how land creates networks, access, and control long after the cameras leave. A property isn't just a place, it's a base. It's a meeting point, it's a quiet promise of permanence. And permanence, inside royal life, is one of the most powerful tools of all. That's why property gifts can quietly shift who becomes inside the story. A deed can pull someone closer to royal orbit without ever announcing they've been pulled closer. It can turn a family connection into an influence corridor. It can give certain people more opportunities to be present, to be consulted, to be considered normal in spaces that used to be restricted. And once that happens, reversing it becomes politically ugly. The palace calls it generosity, but William reads it as capture power acquired through paperwork instead of confrontation. William frames it as institutional risk, not personal conflict, because he knows the moment this becomes personal, the palace can bury it under emotion. But a risk argument forces a different kind of attention. It forces the question, what does this transfer do to the crown's independence? What does it do to public perception? What does it do to the future reign if influence becomes anchored outside official control? William's concern isn't only what the gift gives, it's what the gift allows. Camilla's circle sees it as rightful security, the natural reinforcement of family stability. William sees the opposite, a footprint being placed where it will be difficult to remove. The difference between those two interpretations is exactly where royal wars begin, because both can be described as protecting the crown. One side protects by building comfort around the present. The other protects by preventing the future from being boxed in by decisions made quietly today. Then the foreshadowing tightens into something colder. William notices the property has restrictions that look designed to prevent reversal. Not simple protections, but clauses that seem crafted to make challenge difficult, to make scrutiny inconvenient, to make any future correction look like cruelty rather than governance. And that's when the conversation stops feeling like a misunderstanding and starts feeling like design. The cliffhanger arrives in the most unsettling form. A staffer repeats one phrase for stability, said gently, said confidently, said as if it ends the discussion. But for stability is a loaded phrase in palace language. It's what people say when they want you to accept a compromise without asking who benefits from it. It's what people say when they want peace to sound like virtue and resistance to sound like danger. William hears it and feels the trap. Stability is being used as a shield for permanence. But the real question isn't why Charles approved it, it's who wrote the plan that brought it to his desk. One rumor is noise, two are friction. But paperwork turns panic into proof. William's team reviews the draft transfer and finds something chilling, a missing page. Not lost, removed. A clause that changes everything, a condition that protects the gift from future challenge. The palace doesn't misplace pages like this by accident. It happens when someone needs truth to become fog, just long enough for ink to dry. In this fictional telling, William's team doesn't read the draft like ordinary lawyers. They read it like investigators. They see unusual clauses and do not deviate instructions that don't belong in a simple act of generosity. Those instructions signal anticipation. Someone expected interference. Someone expected questions. Someone prepared the document like a weapon that only works if no one touches it before it fires. Then they find the gap. The missing page isn't random. It's positioned where the document's true teeth would be revealed. A missing page suggests deliberate deletion, not clerical error, because the rest of the draft is too clean, too intentional, too perfectly assembled. And that's when the story becomes humiliating in a way that has nothing to do with emotion and everything to do with control. William begins to suspect the king is being managed, not by force, by filtering, by presenting Charles with a version of the truth safe enough to sign. A neutral verifier flags risk of misinterpretation, escalating concern, and that warning feels like an institutional confession. It suggests the palace itself knew the optics were volatile, that someone recognized the danger and tried to mark it without directly accusing anyone. But the marking didn't stop the process. It was simply folded into the file, as if risk could be managed by keeping it quiet. Foreshadow sharpens when William's team hears that a second copy of the full draft exists somewhere. That detail changes everything, because it means the missing page wasn't destroyed. It was relocated, protected, held by someone who wanted control over the most dangerous clause. And then the final chill settles in. The clause implies a wider network of assets, other properties, other arrangements, other transfers, structured in similar ways. Not a gift, a system. And once William realizes this isn't one gift but a structure, he makes a move that shocks everyone. William doesn't rage. He doesn't beg. He draws a line. He informs the palace, calmly, that the transfer will not proceed not until every condition is exposed and every motive is clear. It isn't a family argument anymore. It's a constitutional posture. Because if the heir can't stop a property move that reshapes influence around the crown, then the crown isn't steering itself. And William refuses to inherit a machine he can't control. In this fictional account, the calm is what terrifies people. Anger can be dismissed as emotion. Calm, delivered with authority, can't be waved away. William frames it as protecting the monarchy, not punishing anyone, and that choice of language is deliberate. It pulls the conversation out of the personal and locks it into the institutional. He doesn't accuse Camilla's family of greed. He doesn't insult the king's generosity. He simply states in clear terms that the crown cannot afford permanent influence being anchored outside its control, especially not through quiet paperwork passed off as kindness. He insists on a review panel or legal audit, fictionalized but presented like a non-negotiable step, not because he enjoys bureaucracy, but because bureaucracy is the palace's own language of truth. Audits create paper trails create accountability. And accountability is exactly what this gift was designed to avoid. William's demand lands like a door slammed softly, quietly. Final. The kind of finality that forces everyone in the room to choose how they will respond, with truth or with defense. Charles feels cornered in a way that cuts deeper than any argument. Defend Camilla, and he risks appearing to prioritize marriage over integrity. Defend institutional integrity, and he risks humiliating the person beside him in front of the very system she relies on. The king, in this story, isn't angry first, he's stunned, because what William is really implying is unbearable, that Charles was shown a version of the truth safe enough to sign, that the palace machine, built to serve him, may have filtered him. Camilla's circle treats William's intervention as humiliation. They don't hear review, they hear suspicion. They don't hear integrity, they hear rejection. In their eyes, this isn't governance, it's a public marking of boundaries around who counts and who doesn't. William's circle calls it containment. They see the transfer as a foothold that could become a fortress, and they see William's line as the first act of a future reign refusing to be shaped by quiet arrangements made today. Foreshadow sharpens when someone warns William, this will leak, not as a threat but as a fact. Because inside palace walls, anything that changes power creates hungry ears, hungry pens, hungry alliances. The warning lands because William already knows it. He can feel how quickly the air becomes crowded, how quickly the room fills with invisible observers, how quickly the palace starts preparing explanations for something it never wanted explained. Then comes the cliffhanger that changes the emotional temperature entirely. Charles says one sentence that reveals he wasn't shown everything. It isn't a confession delivered like guilt, it's a realization delivered like shock. A simple line small enough to miss if you weren't listening, confirming that a page, a clause, a condition never reached his hands. William hears it and feels something harden inside him. This isn't only about a gift. It's about who dares to manage the king, and as Charles tries to regain control, the palace begins doing what it does best, rewriting the story before it escapes. Inside the palace, information travels faster than footsteps. Two courts start moving like rival machines, one focused on protecting Camilla's authority, the other focused on protecting the future reign. Advisors whisper. Handlers draft statements nobody asked for. Allies choose sides without saying they're choosing sides. Because once William blocks the gift, the real fight becomes control of the narrative, and narrative is the monarchy's oxygen. Court A moves first with instinct, protect the private generosity story. If the transfer is framed as kindness, then opposition looks cruel. If it's framed as misunderstanding, then William's intervention looks like overreaction. They begin shaping language immediately soft, careful phrasing, designed to make the whole incident feel like an administrative hiccup rather than a structural conflict. Routine. Private. Family. Words meant to lull the public and calm the insiders. Court B counters with risk management and institutional integrity. Their language is colder, but it carries authority. They want the story to read as responsible intervention, not emotional conflict. They want the public to believe William protected the crown from an optics trap, a governance vulnerability, a permanent shift of influence that should never have been attempted without full transparency. And once both sides begin drafting reality, reality becomes negotiable, which is exactly how the palace prefers it. Charles is pulled between marriage and monarchy with every sentence he hears. Each explanation he allows becomes a decision. Each silence becomes permission. And other royals fictionalized here are quietly positioned as proof of unity or proof of fracture, depending on who needs them. A friendly appearance becomes a signal. A cancelled engagement becomes a message. The palace uses people the way it uses paperwork, as instruments to create the impression of stability. Foreshadow returns with a line that feels like a prophecy. A senior aide says, "This was always coming." Not because they wanted disaster, but because they knew the system had been tightening for too long. That line hangs in the air like a warning that the gift was only the spark, not the fire. And then the final chill arrives. Someone mentions a summary note of the meeting that approved the gift. Not rumor, not memory. A note, a document, something written down. And then the story stops being about opinions because that summary note surfaces. A rumor can be denied, a reaction can be spun. But a document is different, it doesn't care who outranks who. The summary note outlines optics, exposure, and timing, and it reads like planning, not family kindness. It shows action items, suggested phrasing, and a warning, do not circulate. Suddenly, the property transfer doesn't look like affection. It looks like positioning designed to survive scrutiny by never inviting it. In this fictional account, the note doesn't arrive with fanfare. It surfaces the way truth often surfaces in a palace quietly, through someone who wasn't meant to notice it, or someone who noticed it and decided not to protect the lie anymore. The moment William sees it, the entire argument changes shape. Because now he isn't fighting a narrative, he's holding the blueprint of the narrative. The note lists attendance, talking points, and action items, and that alone is enough to make William's stomach tighten. Attendance means the room was controlled. Talking points mean the conversation was guided. Action items mean the outcome was anticipated. Nothing in it reads like spontaneous generosity. It reads like a managed operation, built to look harmless from the outside while doing something permanent on the inside. The language about optics is the most revealing part. Not how will this affect the family, but how will this look? Not what is fair, but what is safe. The note treats the transfer like a communications problem, a messaging strategy, a story that must be protected before anyone gets the chance to question it. Suggested phrasing appears like pre-written excuses, the kind of lines that sound warm and reasonable until you realize they exist to stop debate, not invite it. Then William finds the sentence that feels like a confession: do not circulate. That warning implies anticipated backlash, meaning whoever wrote the note understood the gift would not be universally accepted if the details were known. It also implies the note wasn't written for transparency, it was written for containment. And once a palace begins containing, it's because it believes it has something to hide. A neutral verifier flags risk, indicating internal concern, and that's when William feels the real humiliation settle in. Neutral verifiers don't live in emotion, they live in fallout. If someone neutral felt the need to attach a risk warning, it means the palace itself knew this could explode. Yet the process moved forward anyway, wrapped in soft language and routine urgency. William sees it clearly now: the king's authority wasn't being served. It was being bypassed. The crown was being steered around the king, through paperwork, through advisors, through helpful planning that decided what he should see and what he shouldn't. Foreshadow sharpens when the note references a future decision window. A time frame, a moment when the transfer becomes locked, when the optics are deployed, when reversal becomes nearly impossible without public embarrassment. William understands why the timing felt rushed. Once the window closes, the palace can say it's done, it's settled, it's irreversible, and anyone who objects will look like the one creating chaos. The note isn't just describing a plan, it's describing a trap. But the deeper shock isn't what the note says, it's who it was written to protect. William realizes the real question isn't whether Camilla's family deserves security. It's whether royal security is being built outside royal control. Because once property becomes a fortress of influence, it changes who can pressure the crown and when. The motive begins to look chillingly simple: make permanence impossible to reverse. And in royal life, permanence is the most dangerous currency of all. In this fictional telling, exclusion of oversight becomes the real scandal. Not the idea that people want stability, but the idea that stability is being engineered in a way that removes the crown's ability to correct itself later. If property is transferred with clauses that block review, limit challenge, or restrict future decisions, then the transfer stops being generosity and becomes architecture, an influence structure built to outlast moods, reigns, even relationships. William starts to suspect the palace is testing how much resistance remains, how far it can move influence without triggering a public fight, how quickly it can set permanent pieces on the board before anyone has time to react. That suspicion hurts Charles most, because Charles wants peace, William wants clarity. And those two desires collide brutally when peace becomes the reason clarity is denied. In this story, Charles isn't painted as cruel, he's painted as vulnerable to the palace's oldest trick: make the dangerous thing sound like the comforting thing. Foreshadow arrives as a warning whispered with that calm palace tone that makes it feel real. Watch who you trust. William hears it and understands the implication. The threat isn't only the transfer, The threat is the network behind it, the people who drafted, guided, and protected it, and the people who will try to protect it again by controlling what leaks and what doesn't. Then comes the cliffhanger that widens the stakes, hint of a second set of assets linked to the same clause. Not one property. A pattern, a chain. A structure designed to build permanence across multiple holdings, multiple gifts, multiple private moves that quietly reshape influence around the crown. William feels the ground shift, because now stopping one transfer may only be the beginning. If there's a second set, there could be a third. And if there's a structure, then someone has been planning for years. The stakes rise fast: private stability versus public legitimacy, because once the public senses the crown's assets can be redirected through hidden planning, trust becomes fragile. William knows that the monarchy's survival depends on appearing above private capture, and if this looks like capture, then the future reign begins under suspicion. And once William senses a second set exists, he understands the real threat isn't the gift, it's the leak. Now it isn't just family tension, it's vulnerability. If the wrong person gets even one paragraph, the story won't be framed as a private disagreement. It will be framed as governance, legitimacy, and a palace machine that decides who benefits. Offers get made. Narratives get drafted. Factions prepare selective leaks like weapons. And William realizes the palace isn't a sanctuary, it's a maze designed to trap the truth. In this fictional account, the moment William draws his line, the palace shifts into its most dangerous mode, containment through narrative. People stop speaking plainly. They start speaking strategically. And the reason is simple: this story, if it escapes, won't be judged like a family quarrel. It will be judged like a system. A system that moves assets, shapes influence, and decides who is protected and who is managed. That's why the threat isn't only the transfer. It's what the transfer suggests about how decisions are being made behind the king's back. Competing factions prepare leaks to control blame and outcome, and suddenly truth becomes currency. One side wants to leak just enough to make William look harsh, rigid, unreasonable. Because if William becomes the villain, the gift becomes kindness again. Another side wants to leak the summary note to prove intent, to show this wasn't affection but positioning. A third side wants to keep it all in their pocket. Because in palace life, the most powerful weapon isn't exposure. It's the threat of exposure at the perfect time. Camilla's circle tightens messaging and pushes the private gift story hard. They want a simple headline: loving king, generous gesture, misunderstood heir. They want the public to see warmth, not structure. They want language like family support and personal kindness to drown out words like optics and risk. Meanwhile, the king's household tries containment, fearing public destabilization, because they understand what happens when governance meets scandal. Markets don't need proof. The public doesn't need every detail. They only need the feeling that the crown is being steered by hidden hands, and that feeling spreads faster than facts. William's circle quietly monitors risk to future stability, not because they want war, but because they see the deeper danger. If the monarchy appears capturable through paperwork, the next reign begins under suspicion. They watch who calls whom, who suddenly offers help, who shows up in hallways with advice nobody asked for. They tighten access around documents, meetings, and certain conversations because they understand the palace's oldest rule: when something threatens power, someone will try to move it, copy it, or leak it. Then the cliffhanger arrives like a cold whisper. William is warned someone is watching who he speaks to. Not in a dramatic way. In the palace way: calm, quiet, clinical. A reminder that calls can be logged, meetings can be noticed, and information can be tracked without anyone ever admitting it. William realizes the maze isn't only built of walls, it's built of eyes. And the moment you're inside that maze, even silence becomes risky. Because silence invites others to speak for you. Foreshadow tightens into a ticking clock when he hears the most chilling possibility of all. A second copy of the summary note may already be out. Not might exist. May already be out. That means control is already slipping. It means someone anticipated denial and prepared insurance. It means the story can surface anywhere, anytime, framed by whoever benefits most. And once that's true, the palace stops feeling like an institution managing a crisis. It starts feeling like a pressure cooker waiting for the lid to blow. And with the leak threat growing, the next step isn't strategy, it's confrontation. Monarchies don't collapse in explosions. They collapse in miscalculations, especially when the future arrives early. William's intervention exposes a brutal truth. Boundaries are being drawn, and not everyone will stand inside them. Charles faces legacy. Camilla faces limits. William faces whether the crown can remain clean while love demands compromise. And the chilling question remains, was this blocked gift a one-time crisis, or the first rule of a new era? In this fictional telling, Charles is forced to face a legacy dilemma that can't be smoothed over with charm, peace at any cost, or truth with consequences. Peace keeps the family looking united, but peace can also become permission for hidden structures to grow. Truth risks fracture, but fracture sometimes reveals the only path back to integrity. The institution needs stability. The human beings inside it need safety, dignity, and loyalty that doesn't demand blindness. Both demand sacrifice, and the tragedy is that sacrifice rarely feels noble when it's demanded through manipulation. The emotional outcomes narrow into three harsh endings. Reconciliation. If the palace admits what happened and dismantles the system that tried to make permanence irreversible. Fracture. If blame becomes a weapon and every side fights for narrative dominance. Or cold coexistence, the most royal ending where everyone stays in place, smiles on schedule, and privately accepts that trust has been replaced by control. And in the background, the palace restructures access, advisors, and documentation flow, because once a machine is exposed, its first instinct is to tighten its grip. Then comes the ending sting. The second copy may surface, meaning the story isn't over. A second copy means timing is no longer in royal hands. It means someone else can ignite the scandal whenever it suits them. And that leads to the final twist William can't ignore. He realizes the attempted gift was meant to test him. Not necessarily to defeat him, but to measure him. To see if he would comply. To see if he would swallow permanence dressed as kindness. To see if the future reign can be guided the same way the present reign was guided, through paperwork, through pressure, through silence. And as the palace returns to silence, one truth remains louder than ever: some gifts don't build families, they build wars. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.